The Oklahoma City Thunder pull off a comeback win over the Miami Heat thanks to a 24-0 fourth quarter run. We're going to break it all down and think about how this one even happened and why it's yet another sign that they're title contenders.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. On today's show, we're diving into the Oklahoma City Thunder's comeback win over the Miami Heat, the unbelievable defense, the unbelievable run, the improbable win. How special is this Thunder team? Brandon Rahbar, Daily Thunder, 107.7 The Franchise. You're here with us to discuss this game. Brandon, what a weird game it was.
It was a weird game. It was a fun game. It was an unbelievable game. Lots of adjectives about this game tonight. It was a game that I think going into it, nobody thought much about it. Probably looking ahead to the Timberwolves a little bit. Maybe early on, the Thunder themselves looking just slightly ahead. I don't think that they were. They just came out a little bit sluggish. But, this Heat team is about, I guess people call them a mid team. They're 500. They've kind of hovered around 500 all season. But they're perfectly capable any given night kind of going off. They have Bam. They have Tyler Herro. They now have Andrew Wiggins, who has historically been a Thunder killer, kind of P.J. Washington before P.J. Washington. And it was a game that it looked like maybe just wasn't the Thunder's night until it was.
That's exactly right. I mean, the Thunder had zero business winning this game. Like, at best, the Thunder played a C game. At the best, if you wanted to be a very generous teacher, a no child left behind grader, and the Heat played the best. They maximized this roster. You got the really good Bam game. You got games from a Davion Mitchell. You got games from Wiggins where you felt really good about what you were doing with Miami. They got up by 20 points, and yet they lose by double digits to the Thunder in a game in which for over a quarter, you could describe the Thunder as lethargic. You could describe the Thunder as laissez-faire. You could describe the Thunder as looking ahead. You could describe the Thunder as lacking intensity. These are all adjectives that the Thunder have not had thrown their way at all this season, but it was true tonight. And it felt like, hey, they're finally acting like a real NBA team. Because what do real NBA teams do throughout the NBA history? Guess what? They have bad nights, and they have bad nights that kind of compound on themselves, where you start out and you're 1 for 13 from three, and you're not shooting the ball well, and you're not playing to your standard defensively. As a matter of fact, you're playing really bad defense. It wasn't just like that. Poor Thunder, the historic defense is only playing good. They were playing awful defense to start this game. And sometimes teams can just roll over and die in these games and just say, oh, we're going to get them next time. We got a quick turnaround. Chet's back tomorrow, hopefully, because he was only resting tonight. And the All-Star break's right around the corner. But let's just go try again in Minnesota. But this Thunder team deserves a lot of credit, as they have all year, for continuing to fight, continuing to scrap and claw their way back into games whenever they start this way, which it's rare to start this way anyway, but they've proven to you that they have the endurance to overcome adversity like this, and they have the ability to make adjustments on the fly and figure out how to tap in, how to bring energy, how to create momentum, how to lock in defensively. And I think that the Thunder just showed you once again that this is what title teams do. I mean, they take care of teams like Miami no matter how you do it, right? An ugly win is way better than a pretty loss, and they just find a way to maximize all 48 minutes. And maximizing doesn't always mean like playing well for 48 minutes, because they clearly did not do that tonight. But they didn't just play 12 minutes and then say, you know what, guys, we suck tonight. Let's just stop playing the rest of the game. No, they looked at that and said, we still have 3 12-more-minute quarters to play. Let's figure out how to get back in this game. And they used every minute of this game to do that. And most teams don't. Most teams do not have that kind of chutzpah. And the ones that have historically in the NBA, the ones with the gaudy records that the Thunder have, yeah, they go on to win championships. And so like I thought it was a really big feather in their cap that they didn't just let this game slip away from them, even though they got down 21 points in a game that, like, to show how Miami controlled this, the Thunder had a 14-point lead at one point. The Heat had a 21-point lead at one point, but yet there was only one lead change in one tie. But because Miami controlled this game all the way until, the start of the fourth quarter, when that 24-0 avalanche came for Oklahoma City, and the Thunder never let it back out of their grips. And so it took them a long time to break through, but they kept chipping away. They kept stacking possessions. They kept building this brick by brick. I mean, what do you make of a game like this? Because they clearly didn't beat a superstar team or a team that's any threat to do anything this season except for trade Jimmy Butler, which they've already done. Like, how do you balance that of just how impressive it was for the Thunder to beat Miami?
I thought it was really impressive. One of the more impressive wins of the year. Is their biggest comeback of the year, because you could excuse the team that had just won 6 in a row by double digits, and they're playing the Timberwolves tomorrow. They could have we'll get this bad taste out of our mouths tomorrow. They could have packed it in, and they would have still had a huge lead in the West. Nothing would have changed. What we thought of the Thunder wouldn't change, but they didn't do that. And they dug in. They want to win every game. I loved Shai's quote after the game. This is just paraphrasing, but he said, it'd be a waste of the fans' time. It'd be a waste of the refs' time. It'd be a waste of everybody's time if we didn't give it our all. Like, every game they want to come out and win. And that's impressive. That's a championship mindset. They could have packed it in, and they didn't. The other impressive thing was, there's so many games that you can look to in, like, role players stepping up. Like, there's been Aaron Wiggins games. There's been Isaiah Joe games. There's been, name a role player for the Thunder. Well, tonight I thought it was a Kenrich Williams game, because, and this, not just me, Mark Daigneault and Jada, both after the game, said that they thought that Kenrich Williams sparked the comeback. And he did. It was his defense. It was his energy. It was his hustle. He scored 14 points, 3 of 5 from 3. So the offense was great. But what he did defensively and the spark he brought, and I thought that kind of ignited the rest of the team, and they fed off of that, and then the crowd fed off of that. Lou Dort was great. That 24-0 run, though, to start the fourth quarter, I've never seen anything like it. And hardly anybody said anything like it, because this is the first time it's happened in the NBA in over 20 years. So incredibly rare thing tonight. The Thunder would not lose with Angela Schrute in attendance tonight, Rylan.
They would not. And Dwight Schrute is somewhere putting a big wager with Schrute bucks on the Thunder to go win the NBA title after seeing this performance out there tonight. But Kenrich Williams deserves a ton of credit for what he did, because in that first half, when things were not great and they were flat out bad in the first half, Kenrich Williams and Lou Dort were the only two guys that had any energy whatsoever. And I think that we kind of forget how human dynamics play a part in sports, where you can probably think of examples. I know I can of like, you don't feel it that day. I don't feel like doing a podcast today, which, I get that that's a really good job, but I feel like doing a podcast today, but then I get to talk to Brandon, and like, slowly throughout the show, you can see the energy shift and pick up, because, you have somebody to bounce it off of. You have somebody setting the tone, so to say, and meeting you where you're at, and you meeting them where they're at. And I say that to say this, like, I'm sure that happens in your jobs as well. In the first half, Lou Dort and Kenrich Williams were the only people on that Thunder squad giving a ton of intensity defensively. I really don't want to call it anyone's effort level. I don't think that it's effort necessarily, but the necessary engagement, the necessary intensity, the necessary attention to detail, let's put it that way, to their defensive game plan. It was only Kenrich and Lou Dort in the first half. But what happens? These other guys in the second half, after they flirted with getting it to 10 points in that second quarter, chipping away, heading into halftime, they were down only 11, which is a 10-point differential from where they once were in the game. You head in halftime, you come back out, and they shirt up their rim protection, and now you can rattle off stretches where SGA has a 3-possession run where it's all energy-giving plays. I think that Jalen Williams, J-Dub's stretch where he contests a shot at the rim in transition, gets the stop at the rim. Then Miami gets the miss on that transition opportunity, and they kick it out to the corner, and J-Dub sprints across court to go close out on a Jovic 3 that he gets the miss on. Then J-Dub sprints down the other side of the court and gets a circus shot prayer to go in at the rim, and Miami calls another timeout. And it's like in 2 plays, he did 3 different acts that you feed off of, not just on the court, the fans feed off of it, and then it really starts to snowball on the opposition, and it really starts to boost the tide of Oklahoma City. And the Thunder just are so well at reading those signs, like those human dynamic signs of like, okay, if this guy's playing this hard, I got to match him, and letting themselves be picked up by one another. And like you mentioned, it's not just oh, this team goes as blank goes. Like, how many times do you hear that about superstars around the league? Oh, this team only goes if blank goes. They respect one another top to bottom on this roster, it feels like, where it's like Kenrich comes in, he brings the energy tonight, but before it was a Wiggins 40-point night, right? And it was like, okay, now we all want to get in on this action. So I just thought that it was a really great game overall, and a game that you can really pick apart and dissect to show and illustrate all the different ways where the Thunder have been a title team all year long, including in a game like this that coming into it really didn't have a ton of juice. I mean, you're hosting the Heat on the front end of a back-to-back before the All-Star break, but you end up in a place where you're really impressed by the Thunder.
Yeah, I was really impressed tonight. And like you said, it was the team win because everybody kind of played the role. Kenrich and Dort, like you said, bringing the energy, bringing hustle when nobody else had it. And if you look at just the box score, J-Dub doesn't jump out at you. He scored 18 points. He was 7 of 15, but it's when he scored the points, I think. Like you said, that third quarter stretch, he scored 9 points in the third quarter, and it kind of set up, I think, the Thunder to make that run in the fourth quarter. Because if he didn't score those buckets when he did, maybe that's a 15, 16-point deficit going into the fourth quarter, and just the energy is different and the feeling of the game is different. But, they got it to 10 points and it felt manageable. And then, of course, the Thunder come out and hit the first 2 threes of the fourth quarter, and then it's an onslaught. But, everybody played their part. Aaron Wiggins, kind of came back down a little bit from what he had been so far in February, but he still chipped in with double digits. So now he's over double digits in every single game in February. Isaiah Joe was 3 of 8 from 3. He hit some timely buckets. So it was a team win. You know that Shai is going to score 30 to 40 points every night. Side note, bummer that his, Wednesday night streak, he had scored 50 or more in 3 straight Wednesdays. That comes to a close tonight. It's funny. He scored 32, but that actually hurts his scoring average on the season. That's how high he set the bar. But Shai's always going to get, 30 points or so. But the other guys, they always chip in. Like, this team is so deep, and the guys know their roles, and they play them so well. And I think that's what you saw tonight. Everybody had to chip in for this comeback. Even Jay Will. I think Jay Will played a part in that comeback. Like that 5-man rotation to start the fourth completely flipped the game. And as it was Shai, Dort, and what you consider role players outside of those guys, and they just played so well. And Mark played a part too, changing the rotation tonight. Pulling Shai early because J-Dub was cooking in the third quarter, and then that way Shai could play at the start of the fourth quarter. So everybody played their part.
Everybody played their part. Everybody did their job. The Thunder got a very impressive win. I'm going to make the case that this is their most impressive win of the season, which I feel like we say after every single win.
Yeah.
But first, Brandon, I want to tell you right now about our good friends over at WayFair. Brandon, after the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space can help me get back into a routine. So whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give yourself a new look to start the year, WayFair has everything you need, all within your budget. Currently, maybe you're in the ballpark of wanting a nice office desk like I am. You can go to WayFair and find exactly what you want, the pieces you want to fit your style and to fit your budget. My favorite part is the free and hassle-free delivery, even for larger items. WayFair's site was so easy to navigate, and I found everything I needed right then and there in no time. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or your budget. WayFair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. And matching your decor style that you want. So give your home a refresh with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. WayFair. Every style, every home at wayfair.com. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Lockdown Thunder. That's Brandon Rahbar, 1077 The Franchise, dailythunder.com, media luminary. Now, Brandon, I'm going to make the case for this being the most impressive win of the Thunder's season. I feel like we say this every single time, and to me, I have two clear-cut options for the most impressive win. And this is going to be a fun show to do on Friday, honestly. Of ranking the wins, or at least the top 10. But the Memphis game on Saturday deserves a lot of credit to be the most impressive win, just given who you were missing, who the Grizzlies had, and the implications of that game of Memphis surely wanted to make a statement against the clear-cut West favorites, and they couldn't, even as the Thunder were shorthanded. So I will grant you, that's a strong leader in the clubhouse, but in this game, you objectively played bad. This was not like, oh, the Thunder are missing shots they typically make, and they're gonna turn it on, right? The shots are gonna start to fall. It was really none of that. There's a reason why, and I'll admit it. I mean, whenever they got down 20, and again looked lethargic, looked like a shell of themselves, looked completely opposite from what the first segment of this schedule, every game before this one, suggested that they would look like. I thought, okay, this is one of those games, right? This is one of those games where, sometimes you're the windshield, sometimes you're the bug, the old Calipari analogy of 5 games a year, you can never lose. You will never lose a game. 5 games a year, there'll be games where you're hitting every shot, you're doing everything right, nobody would beat you on that night. And there's 5 games a year where you can't get your guys to play, and you're losing that game against anybody because they're playing so bad. I thought this might have been one of your 5 games where you're going to lose, and it's okay to lose. Like this Thunder team will lose more games in the future, but the fact that they didn't let that happen, the fact that they didn't just settle for that, right? They didn't just settle for, oh, we're having a bad night. I thought showed really impressive resolve. And then what you touched on before the break, the impressive nature of everybody contributed, everybody turned it up, right? It wasn't just one party, and it was stemming from things that you have to do in the playoffs, right? There are going to be nights in the playoffs where you don't start hot from 3. But guess what? The Thunder kept plugging away. The Thunder kept generating good shots. They didn't abandon the 3. And they end up shooting 38% from 3. They end up shooting 49% from the floor. And it gives you some encouragement, or at least an example to point to, right? Of when we talk about the Thunder are gambling in a way on, hey, Mark is going to find somebody that night who can play in the playoffs. So even if you start a playoff game and so-and-so is having an off night, he'll flip through that Rolodex and find a player who is on that night. And I think that you saw that in tonight's game. And Mark touched on it, of all the adjustments of talking to Shai mid-game, mid-third quarter. Hey, Shai, what do you think about sitting right now instead of playing the whole third quarter like you normally do? That way I can put you in to start the fourth quarter. And Shai agreed to do that. Shai thought that was also the proper thing to do in that situation. And he mentioned benching J-Whale for Kenrich to go small, but then going back to J-Whale throughout this game, where he was on the court for a big part of this 24-0 run. That aspect of Mark's coaching style of not being stubborn, of the willingness to adapt on the fly and adjust on the fly, is how you win playoff games, is how you win playoff series, is how you win the adjustment battle and the chess match that comes in the postseason, because there's so many coaches out there who will just kind of throw their hands up in a way and say, well, these are our top 8 guys, so no matter what happens, we're playing these top 8 guys. I don't care what it looks like. This is our plan going in. We got to stick to our plan, stick to our game plan. We've scouted. We've poured in hours over what we think the plan should be. So we got to live and die by that plan. And Mark's not that kind of coach. He's willing to adapt with everybody. And to Shai's credit, there's so many superstars out there who aren't comfortable changing anything about their routines, from the time they step in the arena to the minutes they play to the position they play to anything about their game. They're not comfortable changing any aspect of it. And Shai is extremely comfortable adapting. And so this was just an example of the Thunder's positive qualities for the postseason. And then also the Heat who are not a playoff team. Like they're not going to be a team that you ever would worry about for either conference in the playoffs. But the Heat got the best out of their roster, and you got one of, if not your absolute worst game of the season, and it didn't matter. You still lost by double digits in Miami.
Yeah, the Heat played about as well as they could tonight, at least through 3 quarters. And this team does have some talent, even with Jimmy Butler gone. Bam is an all-star. Tyler Herro is an all-star this year. Andrew Wiggins was an all-star starter a couple of years ago. I just thought that this Thunder team took this game seriously because this is something that they talk about. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter what their record is. They talked about this in post games consistently, that's NBA talent over there. You got to be really talented to make it to the NBA. And because they respect every opponent, they bring it every night. And that's why I think it was, the first half of this game, the first 3 quarters of this game, it just didn't look like the Thunder, because it did kind of look like they were just kind of going through the motions. And, especially defensively, we didn't see the same, focus, attention to detail that we usually see. But man, it kicked in that 4th quarter. It really kicked in kind of midway through that 3rd quarter, and they cranked it up. They dug in on defense. And, this Miami Heat team, I don't know what they're going to do in the East. The Thunder do have some sort of interest in the Heat this year because they do have the Heat's lottery protected 1st-round pick. It's unprotected next year. I think you can make the argument either way. Like, is it better for the Heat to make the playoffs this year and then it's unprotected? Or I'm sorry, and then you get maybe the 15th or 16th pick in a deep draft. That's a solid pick. Or is it better if they miss the playoffs this year, then you have an unprotected Miami Heat pick next year? So there's some vested interest in what the Heat do for the rest of the season. And I don't know, I could see them making the play-in and making a little bit of run and making the playoffs or just dropping out. But they're a 500 team, and the Thunder took care of business, even though they were down 21, and this 500 team played about as well as they could through 3 quarters. Championship teams, they do what the Thunder did tonight.
They do what the Thunder do tonight for sure. And as a spoiler alert, we're going to be recording another show on Friday for next week, for the All-Star break week, where let's do that. Let's rank the R5. So then there'd be 10 total if we have different games. R5 best wins of the year. So comment down below what your 5 best wins of the year are for the Thunder. We'll give our best 5, and you'll have to see if Brandon agrees or not. What's the most impressive win? As I laid out the case for this to be, will it even still be my most impressive win by the time we get to Friday? We'll see. But coming up, let's talk Lu Dort. What a game from Lu Dort. Let's go in depth in his contest. Let's talk Minnesota a little bit, and moving forward into the All-Star break. We're back on the Lockdown Thunder podcast on the Lockdown Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm Rylan Stiles, host of Lockdown Thunder. That's Brandon Rahbar, dailythunder.com, 107.7 The Franchise. Brandon, another game where we're recapping a Thunder win, but it really would not be possible without Lu Dort. Lu Dort, 17 points, 3 steals, 1 block, 1 assist, 2 rebounds, 2 for 5 from 3, 40%, and 70% from the floor overall. And one absolutely embarrassment of Tyler Herro in the 4th quarter. I will say Tyler Herro is dealing with a stomach bug, but Mark illustrated it perfectly of it's so hard to lock down scores like Tyler Herro. And the scores of the caliber that Lu consistently locks down, it's very hard. It's became normal, right? It's became what you expect, but it's still exceptionally hard because look at Shai. Shai's an elite scorer in this league. How many times does great offense beat good defense? And does great offense beat even great defense? Where sometimes you run up against a player who, they are just able to beat great defenses. And Tyler Herro's not to that level of score, but he's still a really good scorer. He's still an all-star. He's still a worthy all-star at that. To do what he did on Tyler Herro was really impressive. To do what he's done, his career is really impressive. But tonight was just a game where if you were going to show someone one game of Lu to illustrate how great they are and how great he is, it'd be up there for the contender of what game you want to play.
Yeah, Lu outscored Tyler Herro tonight, 17-14, and Lu was 7-10 from the field, and he held Tyler Herro to 5 of 12 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3. And I think most importantly, 0 in the fourth quarter. He was 0 of 2 in the fourth quarter. So first of all, the fact that he didn't make a single shot in the fourth quarter because Lou Dort was hounding him like Tyler Herro was trying to get a Reese's. But the fact that he only got 2 shots off was even bigger. Like that 24-0 run, a lot of it was Thunder offense, but a lot of it was starting from Thunder defense that led to Thunder offense. And a lot of that was spearheaded by Lou Dort and his defense on Tyler Herro. I mean, the Miami Heat, they lost that 10-point lead in the fourth quarter, but then they were fighting back. And you would think when a team is, trying to do anything they can to get back into a game that they've lost, that they lost control of, that they had a 21-point lead in, their leading scorer, their all-star, is going to get off some shots. But it's pretty tough to do when Lou Dort is locked in and he's put you in the torture chamber because he just would not even let Herro get the ball. He was smothering him before he even got the ball. And then he just gave him no space to get any shots off. 0 for 2. But I think the bigger point is two shots off in the fourth quarter. And, that was kind of the story of the game. The 24-0 run was the game, and Lou Dort's defense and that defense leading to offense was kind of the underlying of that 24-0 run.
Yeah, and Lou Dort deserves a lot of credit too for his just his overall improvement as a offensive weapon for this team, and weapon in the sense of pulling back the reins on himself and coupling that with great coaching of teaching him, and working with him on what's a good shot versus a bad shot. And he's been really selective. It's helped his efficiency every single year. He gets more efficient on the back of primarily just becoming more selective. And I do think that part of that was when he was first in Oklahoma City, especially that second season until they got back to the play-in, like who else was going to shoot? Who else was going to score? Who else was going to put that on him? And even that play-in year, like people forget that J-Dub was a shell of the aggressive scorer that he is now in that play-in year. Whereas like Lou on that play-in team, he was the second most confident, second most willing shooter on the roster behind just Shai. And so that's been a process to evolve that now where you get pushed further and further down that totem pole in terms of like who you want shooting those shots. And Lou's adjusted to that very well. And that can really go one of two ways historically in the NBA of like either a guy does not want to limit his shot diet and still believes that he can be a scorer, or he does what Lou does, which is, hey, team first, I'm going to do my role of 3-and-D, and I'm going to do it very efficiently, and I'm going to be one of the best players in the world at my specialty. And Lou Dort has been able to do that. But this Thunder team, I mean, they're special, Brandon. Like they're flat out special. No Chet, no AJ Mitchell, no Kaysen, no Caruso. But at the end of the game, as he left with a hip soreness, hip tightness injury, and they still pull out this come from behind win against Miami. Any last thoughts on this win over the Heat? Season sweep over the Heat.
Yeah, I guess just to kind of cap your point about this being a special team, like they are historically great right now. Like, when you're watching the 90s Bulls and the 2010s Warriors, it's, they have a reverence now when you look back on them, like how historically elite they are. And right now, this Thunder team is playing at that level. And maybe because, we all watch this team in real time and we've seen this team through the rebuild and come up. And maybe it's because they haven't won it all yet, but it's like I'll take it back to The Office since Angela Schrute was in the building tonight. Remember when Andy Bernard said, I'm paraphrasing, he said something like, I wish we knew we were in the good old days, while we were living them. Yeah. It's kind of like this team. Like maybe if this team goes on and if they were to be able to go to the NBA Finals, win a championship, then, they would get that sort of reverence if they keep up this historic level. But maybe we'll look back and realize how special this team is. Because right now we're just kind of like watching them. But I don't think we are kind of appreciating like how historically elite this team is playing. Like the net rating being the best of all time. Like this defense, being one of the best of all time. Shai having an all-time season for a guard. Right now they have the scoring leader, the MVP front runner, and they're number one in a stacked West by like 9 games. Like what they're doing right now really is special. And nights like tonight just kind of remind you of what you're watching, because that's what those great special teams do.
Yeah, and I think that, like, we're not going to sit here and be fan police, but if you're a Thunder fan and, like, we have a different point of view because we're not Thunder fans. We cover the team. Like, the teams I'm a fan of, like, I can just sit back and enjoy and be a fan of, is like the Royals, the Chiefs, and then Tennessee football, like Tennessee Volunteers football.
I'm a Cowboys fan, but I can't say I sit back and enjoy them.
Yeah, it's not been much enjoyable for you for the football season. But just think about it from this lens. I understand that you want them to win a championship, and you should want them to win a championship because they're dang good, and they are championship level good, and they very well can win the championship this season. But you have to know in your heart of hearts, while you don't want to look past this year, and honestly, it's a disservice to this team to look past this year, because if they don't win it, regardless of the excuse making and the logic and the big picture stuff, they're going to be devastated because this team is that good. But to the point of enjoying it, it's not all riding on this year. Like, right. This is not like the 2016 team where it's like the Thunder are good. The Thunder had their best shot at the title being up 3-1, and you had uncertainty after the season was over. This is the start of something. This is the beginning. This is whether you win the title or whether you lose in the first round, right? Either option, the Thunder have the assets to go make this team even better. The Thunder have meticulously managed their money to where this summer it's going to be, Shai, Chet, Dub, locking them up and keeping this group intact to where it should be a consequence-free season that you as a fan just get to sit back and enjoy. I mean, just see where it takes you. It's like a lazy river. Just float along the lazy river, see where it takes you. It could take you to Championshipville, could take you to disappointment land, but I know one place it will not take you. It will not take you to Disaster Island. There's no circumstances, even in the first round of a loss, that it would be a disaster. You want to know why? Because it's the start. Because you still have the resources to go fix it. You're not running out of time. You're not Alexander Hamilton riding like you're running out of time. You have all the time in the world moving forward, including this year, and including the chance to win the title this bleeping year. So just enjoy it, and you worry about the future in the future. And for right now, though, this team, they deserve your entire enthrallment. They deserve, like, don't get caught up in like, what if they don't? What if they do? What if they don't? They deserve your entire attention because this is special. This is historic stuff. And it's so special because you got to see all of the growing pains. You didn't just come in right on the cusp of them about to be this good. You saw, if you paid attention during the rebuild, the same principles, the same strategies, the same identities, the same verbiage that Mark and the players who were here during those losing seasons, like Kenrich and Shai, were using back then. You've seen them go from Markisms and like funny quips and like coach speak to real life tangible things that they're executing. And so, like, you've gotten to see this whole thing build, this whole thing progress. And I think that you're doing yourself a disservice if you're only looking at this through, they've got to go to the championship, or I'm so mad at this team, or I'm so disappointed in this team, because they have the time to win those championships. And no team has done it as fast as the Thunder would have done it if they win a championship this year. So to me, it's unfair to hold this team to an anomaly standard. Can they be the anomaly? They absolutely can. But should that be the standard? That's the gray area dance. But let me just put a bone up with this. Every indicator from eye test to stats and to the teams around them show you that the Thunder should win the title this year. So go all in. Go all in. Reckless abandon all in on this Thunder team. Thank you.
You want me to? Like, you're telling me to?
No. I mean, you can do whatever you want. We're not like really fans. Like, we're just more so media. But I think that fans would enjoy this season more if they just let themselves enjoy this season and let it take you where it will take you.
I was getting caught up in it, Rylan. I thought you were speaking to me like that. You make it so personal.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a preacher in a way. you could say. But
no, this team is still one of the youngest teams in the NBA.
That's crazy.
And they have many bites at the apple of contention because of the way this roster is set up, and because they have SGA, J-Dub, and Chet, 3 all-stars. We're going to go ahead and say Chet is playing when he's healthy at an all-star level, and eventually we'll make all-stars. They have a team that's going to be in contention, provided health, every season for several seasons. So this is just the beginning. Like you said, this is a really fun team. This is a special team. And they just keep doing it. The fact that we can come up with each of our own separate top 5 wins of the season, at the all-star break and make a good argument for probably 10 or a dozen games, pretty telling about this team.
Pretty good. Brandon, back tomorrow recapping the Wolves game. Unless you just beat down the door, you don't have to record that Wolves recap. But if you want to, the door is always open. The door is unlocked. The key is under the mat. If it is locked, you're always welcome back. But as we did tease, we're going to be recording a show Friday for All-Star Week, so I can get some time away from this microphone on All-Star Week, where we're going to rank the top wins of the season. We're also going to talk playoff matchups. So let us know who your ideal and least ideal playoff matchup is. Let us know your favorite wins of the season for the Thunder. And until tomorrow, where we might or might not have Brandon Rahbar. Be good and be good to one another.